All right, what's going on, y'all? All right, Shawn of Back to Basics Fitness with Shawn. I'm here today, and today I'm talking about why you shouldn't or you don't have to count calories and what you can do instead. Now, I'm excited to get into this because calorie counting when it comes to losing weight is one of those things that is just considered just standard. If you want to lose weight, you got to count calories. But I'm here to tell you that it's not true. It's not true. It's not true. And we're gonna go into this so I can kind of explain myself why I say that. Um, Make sure if you have any questions that you put them in the chat, and I'm gonna have some time later on toward the end of this session to answer your questions. I may answer some of them during this live, but there's gonna be a time at the end where we answer some questions. Okay. All right. So, yep. Don't count calories, do this. All right, so give me a second here to go ahead and pull up the my slides, if you will. Here it is. All right, here we go. All right, sorry. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're continuing with the whole theme of making fat loss easy in 2026. Do not count calories. Do this. Okay, now stick with me because, especially if you're one who's thought, what do you mean don't count calories? If I'm trying to lose fat, like what's up? What's wrong with that? I'm going to explain myself. All right, check it out. So first, let's answer the question that a lot of you may be wondering. So why not count calories? So first of all, I want to explain why I'm even talking about not counting calories in the first place. Not counting calories is really a preference of mine. Let me say this: does calorie counting work? Yes, it does. And the reason why calorie counting actually does work is because fat loss does tend to largely be attributed to calories in, calories out, or I like to say energy in, energy out, because calories are units of energy. We take in calories by via the food that we eat, and then we expend calories based on like the energy that our bodies have to put out to live. And even also, you could factor in there, of course, like the movement, exercise, and even just other movement. So calorie counting does work. And I even say this too. There is a little bit more, there's a little complication to that. But for the most part, if you count calories, it's cool. But I don't prefer to count calories. And I haven't done so at any point. Now the reason why I personally don't like to count calories is because when I eat, I want to just eat. I don't want to be making calculations and, you know, kind of tallying up stuff. I don't want to approach eating the same way I would like if I was going to class and having to do numbers in my head. Like I don't really want to be concerned about that. When I eat, I just want to go eat, enjoy the food, enjoy the company if there's any company, and just move on. Okay. Because for me, again, some people may not mind this, but for me, when it comes to counting calories, it's just it adds a layer to my meals that I don't really prefer. Again, this is me. You may be like, it's not that big of a deal. That's fine. So this is why. But that said, there was a point when I was aiming to get um really lean, um, and I got to 10%, 10.6% body fat per my calipers, and I didn't count 1 calorie. I didn't count 1 calorie. So I'm here to tell you you don't have to count calories. You don't have to think about all those numbers if the way that you approach eating is a certain way. Okay. And so we're going to get into this. And it's not going to take me long really to get into this either. All right. So I'm going to talk about how I got to 10% body fat. So you see this picture here of me that time in my life where I was aiming to get to, get really lean. And between December 2015 to June of 2016. So in roughly 6 months, I got from 17% body fat to 10.6% body fat. Now, I don't recall what the difference in my weight was between the first picture and the second picture. But yes, I did use body fat calipers to measure my body fat. This is how I did that. Like I said, I didn't count any calories, but what I did do is adjust my diet and exercise. Specifically with the diet, what I did was I paid attention to my carbohydrates. And I also paid attention to just generally what most of my plate consisted of. Because here's the deal, on the typical American plate, most of it is going to be some carbohydrate of some kind, potatoes, usually fried potatoes, or white rice, um, macaroni and cheese, some other noodles, big thing of noodles. This is going to be the main part of your plate. And again, most of the time it's going to be processed on the standard American plate for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. My plate didn't look like that. My plate comprised primarily of non-starchy um, green vegetables. So we're talking about the cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and uh, cauliflower, and even though I know cauliflower a lot, I like cauliflower, especially steamed and roasted. But anyway, broccoli and cabbage, collards, kale, other stuff like turnip greens, lettuce of different kinds, um, green beans, uh, and then you have stuff like onions and garlic, which will usually kind of be added to a lot of those different vegetables. These are the things that comprise my diet mostly. I still ate meat. And if I ate any more carbohydrate heavy foods, I tended to eat those toward the early part of the day. Now, as I got leaner, what I will say is that I would kind of plateau every now and then. So what happened was I would lose some weight, lose some fat, and then it would kind of like stabilize. So usually what I had to do is I had to go even further. Like I had to be even more focused on the non-starchy vegetables and do even less carb heavy vegetables or foods and whatnot. So I wasn't doing I think if I did any carbs, it would be in the early part of the day, like breakfast, up to lunch, and then cut off. But I would have to cut it off earlier and earlier as I got leaner and leaner. And the reason why is because once you kind of get to like a certain point, your body, your body's always kind of trying to kind of stabilize. So that's what my body was doing. And since I was wanting to go leaner, I was having to tweak something to help my body to keep on getting more lean, if that makes sense. But this is how I got to 10% body fat. Now, I was also exercising. So I was, you know, I think I was back in that time, I was doing more standard like cardio, and I was doing a lot of calisthenics back then. When I say cardio, like some running and, different stuff like that. That's basically what I was doing. Okay. Maybe some rope jumping as well. Now, let me give to you some diet tips for easy fat loss. Again, I've kind of given them to you, but let's kind of like really kind of like break it down here. The first thing you need to do is you need to make absolutely sure that your diet is largely comprised of non-starchy leafy greens. Okay. Those for off the top, even aside from whether or not you're trying to lose fat, that is your most nutrient dense food group. Meaning for the amount of matter, the amount of food, there's a lot of nutrients. Okay. And not a lot of calories either, which means that you can eat a whole lot of leafy green vegetables. And if you were to count the calories, it would be a very low calorie count, but it'll be a lot of nutrients in there. That needs to be the main part of your diet. So say for example you are eating like a standard meal that's usually going to be like a meat entree. It's going to be a side of maybe rice or something like that. Then it's going to be maybe one green side, like some collard greens, and then a roll. So what you would want to do is you would want the main part of your plate to be the collard greens. Half of your plate, I would say at least. Then have some space in there for the meat, a good quality protein, quality meat, and then maybe you have some space there for some sort of carb food, like a whole food, meaning not like a processed one. So not like some sort of noodles or something like that. Like your standard liquid macaroni and cheese with a white noodle. Not that kind of carb. I'm talking about maybe like some sweet potato or white potato, preferably baked, or roasted or something like that, not necessarily fried, but maybe a little bit of that. Now, the reason for this, and think about this, in our society, we always have mostly carbs on our plates, which actually could make, if it's healthy carbs, it could make sense for a person if that person is physically active most of the day. Now, we're designed to be physically active like most of every day. But here in America or in the West, in a lot of societies around the world, it's not the case. You're not going to be active most of the day. Not even half of the day, not even a quarter of the day for most people. So we eat so much carb heavy food as if we're going to be active, like vigorous the whole day. And the simple truth is that we are not. So none of us really has any reason to be eating, mostly carbs for every meal. Okay. So this is why your plate needs to be mostly non-starchy vegetables. Period. Now, some people have an issue with vegetables. To be honest, I just have to tell you, you have to learn to love them. You have to learn, start with one. Hopefully, there's one you like. Start with that one. Find different ways to cook it or whatever, and begin to become adventurous and develop your palate so that you can. Because again, not only are these going to help you to lose fat, they're your most nutrient dense food group. And so you want to have them as part of your diet. One thing I always say, you'll never hear me talk about weight loss, um, you know, like by any means necessary. Like I'm not interested at all in that. What I'm interested in is weight loss that is a byproduct, a natural byproduct of of health improvements. A healthy lifestyle. Okay, so never try to lose weight just for the sake of it. It should always be a part of the adoption of a healthy lifestyle. Adjustments to your diet, adjustments to the amount of movement, adjustments to your like you getting enough sleep and stuff like that. Okay. So another thing I'll say is you may want to consider even eliminating carb heavy foods for certain meals. Like for example, early part of the day is when you're more likely to need energy for stuff. Now keep in mind, let me not get ahead of myself. So what you might do is have a cutoff, like maybe after 2 p.m. I'm not eating any more like rice or potatoes or any sort of carb heavy food. That might be something that's something I use. Now keep this in mind too. And I talked about this in a recent webinar. Because of the way that most of us eat, our bodies are constantly in fat gain mode. And what kind of way that we eat contributes to that, you might ask? It's specifically you eating in such a way that your blood sugar remains high. And as your blood sugar remains high or elevated, that means that your insulin is also going to be high or elevated. Insulin is known as the fat storage hormone because as insulin is like a key that opens up the various cells of your body to receive glucose to be used as energy. They also open up your fat cells to receive extra energy for storage. So you figure if your insulin is always high, then that means that you're constantly in fat gain mode, constantly. So even as you consider how much of carb heavy food you consume, also understand if you ever want your body, um, if you ever want your body to access your fat, you have to eat in such a way that your body can access your fat. In other words, in conjunction to like not eating a whole lot of carb heavy foods, um, you need to have some times where you're not really eating at all. To the very least, that means snack elimination and not eating late at night. But it also could mean, some level of what people like to refer to as intermittent fasting, like narrowing your eating window or even having actual fast days every now and then, which, if you're not used to that already, you may need to work up to that. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Now, I created what I call a 30-day jumpstart fat loss challenge. Basically, as you guys know, we just started 2026. A lot of people are out there, and it could be you. You're seeking to lose fat. And what I'm telling you is, I've created a challenge based on my experience, including my experience when I got to 10.6% body fat, where I give you the whole blueprint, eating strategies. Again, not having to count calories or count carbs or anything like that, but eating strategies that will make sure that your body gets into fat loss mode. I've created video workouts, beginner level, body weight. So that means you can do them at home or you can do them at the gym if you want to. You can do them at the park if you don't mind this cold weather right now. Um, but these will help to help you to stimulate muscle growth, which is very important when it comes to fat because as you maintain and build muscle, it helps you burn fat. I also have like a very basic cardio schedule for beginners. Why is it basic? One, because it's for beginners, but then two, because it's really all you need for starters on this fat loss journey. A lot of times people feel like you got to go out there and kill it. You got to do like the most vigorous cardio routine ever. You don't. You really don't. As a matter of fact, you have to be mindful of the kind of cardio you use because it could cause you to lose muscle, which in essence could make it harder for you to lose fat. Okay. So it's a 30-day jumpstart fat loss challenge. I've given you the blueprint. All you have to do is follow the blueprint. It's only $99 if you get use the QR code to get it now. And I also can post the link in the chat here in a second, but I'm going to open the floor for questions. If you want 2026 to be your year, I've given a blueprint. It doesn't involve calorie counting. It doesn't involve anything like that. All you have to do is follow what I've given you in the challenge. And I want to see how much weight you're able to lose in a sustainable manner. Okay. I'll put the link in the chat in a second, but now I want to open up the floor for questions. What are your questions about fat loss? How long, I'm even curious, how long have you been trying to lose fat and what are your biggest questions about fat loss? Okay. Give me a second here. I am going to share this link. Let me share this. Give me a second. Challenge link. Okay. What are your biggest questions about fat loss? Because here's the deal again, I'm the type of person that I don't want to be pursuing a goal forever and never reaching it. You know what I mean? That's no fun. That's no fun. A lot of people have been trying to lose weight for, I mean, weeks, months, years, in some cases, decades. And I have a feeling that you want to actually reach that goal at some point. So, what is your question? What is your sticking point? Or if you don't know your sticking point, I can help you find it. Okay. You know, so like, what are your questions? What kind of, you know, concerns do you have? What kind of difficulties have you had? There are some people out here, you actually have lost the weight, but then you have an issue with keeping it off. So I want to hear from you. It could be people here who No matter what you do, it seems like your weight doesn't budge, and you're pretty much like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to take something, one of these injections or whatever. And what I'm gonna tell you is you actually don't have to take any of that stuff. You don't. You don't. And people will experience success on those things, and it has its benefit. But the thing to also remember with that is that those are not root cause solutions. They're not. Which is the reason why when people begin to take those fat loss drugs and whatnot, you're taking them for life. You're supposed to take them for life. So anyhow, what are your questions? And I'll be on here for maybe like another minute just to see if anybody has any questions live. The thing is, in today's world, again, especially with the rise of fat loss drugs and whatnot, the thing that I always want to say is, and I've mentioned this in previous webinars, it doesn't really matter who you are. Sometimes people do have health issues that make it a little bit more difficult to lose weight. And then I'll also say that ladies tend to have a more challenging time losing weight than men do. It's a fact, and that's more so kind of based on hormonal differences and stuff like that. But your body cannot defy the laws of physics. You can lose the weight. Fat is only energy. It's only energy. Remember that. Gas inside of your car represents potential energy that your body converts to a usable form via combustion inside of the engine. So you can convert fat into a usable form inside of your body and use it. It's just simply that the way that most of us live, we never get around to converting it to a usable form. We always kind of hold on to our fat and we gain more and more fat because we stay in fat gain mode. You have to remember that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to assume that there are no questions today about how to lose fat. But yes, if you are interested, um, first of all, make sure you stick around. If you kind of like tuned in and you heard something that was helpful to you, I invite you to subscribe. I invite you to like this video, share it with somebody. The other thing is, if you need help on your journey and you don't know what to do, the link that I have in the chat, the 30-day fat loss jumpstart fat loss challenge, I lay it out for you. All you have to do is follow it. 30 days, and I want to see exactly how you progress through that. Okay. But anyway, I'm going to let that be. If you have questions after I go off of this live, you can put them in the comment section underneath this video. But yeah, please make sure you subscribe and stick around because I am going to continue to do webinars from time to time. So thank you for those of you who joined here. I'm going to sign off. Y'all have a great day, and hopefully I'll see you next stream. Take care.